So you got DayZ. You're gonna jump in, have crazy interactions, get an epic firefight, and live your best DayZ life. Well, they say DayZ has a steep learning curve. I say it has a learning cliff, and you aren't at the bottom trying to make your way up. You're at the top, and you're trying to find your way down. And it's not easy. You're gonna die. A lot. So if you want all the experiences this game has to offer, you're gonna need to live for more than 10 minutes. In this video, I'll teach you the basics of survival, from signing into a server to making your way off the coast with more than 2 HPs to rub together. I'll also add a few tips on PvP at the end, so make sure you stick around for that. Let's start by jumping into a server. When you open DayZ, you'll be put into the DayZ launcher. This is where you'll pick your server from. I recommend picking a server with medium to high population. This will give you a realistic loot table and help you get used to the idea that your game could end with a headshot at any moment. My map preferences is Chernarus, and I always like to play in first person perspective, but pick a server that has the least amount of ping and has your preferred playstyle. Once you've found the server that you want to play on, you're going to click join and then direct connect. This is going to remove or download any mods that you need for that particular server, ensuring that you have the right mod set loaded to play on that server. Wait for the game to load in and get ready to start surviving. The controls for the game should be fairly familiar. WAS and D to move, Shift to run, Control to walk, C to crouch or stand up, and hold C to go prone. Q and E to lean from side to side, F for action, page up and down are for ranging your weapons. And this game has a really cool feature that I don't see in many first-person shooter games. If you hold Alt, you can turn your head without moving your body. This is great when you're running forward to look behind you, or when you're pointing your gun at a door and looking out a window to make sure somebody's not flanking you. Most of these keys can be double-clicked to lock them, and double-click to unlock them again. Caps Lock is used to talk in-game, and you can use the up and down arrows to change the volume of your voice in-game. This affects how far your voice will carry. And yes, if you want the full experience of this game, I highly recommend getting a good microphone and being prepared to use it. This is what separates DayZ from other first-person shooter games. All the controls can be rebound from the options screen. Press Tab to open your inventory screen. On the right, you'll have your survivor, the clothes they're wearing, and all the items that are in them. And on the left, you'll have vicinity and any items that are within your character's reach. On the survivor side, you'll see different slots that are for the different places to carry or wear items. Simply click and drag an item from the vicinity to the corresponding slot to put it on your survivor. Also, dragging it onto the image of your survivor in the middle of the screen will put it in a slot if it's open. You can put items in your inventory by dragging them into the slots, and you can change the orientation of the item by tapping the space bar. You can also drop items easily by holding control and clicking the item, and they'll automatically drop into vicinity. You can put items into your hand by dragging items into the hands field on your survivor. You can also combine some items by dragging them into the combine field once you have an item in your hand. Some items can be stacked by dragging one onto the other, and they can be separated by using the right click button. And if you switch clothes, always remember to take the items out of your old clothes so that you don't leave them behind. When changing clothes, I always recommend swapping them from your hands. When placed in the vicinity, sometimes clothes can get on shelves or up in walls and become out of reach for your survivor, and be either very difficult or impossible to get back. You'll also see numbered hotbar slots. Drag commonly used items here so you can access them without having to go into your inventory. I recommend putting a melee, short range gun, long range gun, and a bandage in these slots, and always put the same type in the same spot so that eventually you won't have to think about what number to press to get them out. I think that's enough about controlling your player for now. We'll jump into spawning in and survival tactics for the early game. When you initially spawn in, your survivor always faces north. This can help you find your rough position on the map. There's no in-game map screen, although you can find a paper map that you can look at, but it does not show your location. You can also find trail maps on billboards in the game with a handy "You Are Here" sticker, but I'm not going to get too much into navigating in this video. While facing north, if the ocean is behind you, you're on the southern coast, and if the ocean is on your right, you're on the east coast. The best direction to start heading is generally away from the coast. Either way, you want to find a town and start looking for supplies. But before we get into what you need and don't need, the first thing I always recommend is learning how to deal with infected. The zombies in DayZ are not actually zombies. They're just infected with an incurable virus that every survivor or player is immune to. So they aren't supernatural and won't turn you into a zombie if they bite you. They will attack any living thing they can find until it stops moving. And once they spot you, they will not give up. For most players I've encountered, is dealing with the infected that accounts for most of the early game deaths. Killing infected is something you need to practice. They're not hard to kill, but if you get 2 or more, they can be a real pain to deal with. It will take a lot of hits from an infected to kill you, but after a bad run-in with a zombie, you can be left beat up with very low health, ruined clothing, and possibly low blood, and you need every ounce of that. First thing you need to learn is how to block. Raise your fists or melee weapon by pressing and holding the right mouse button, then hold S to walk backwards. As long as you keep the infected or player in front of you, they will not be able to hit you with any melee attacks. Most of the time, the infected will attack twice, then pause. This may vary, but it's the most common. Then you attack during this pause by clicking the left mouse button while still holding the right mouse button. With melee attacks, you should always aim a little above their head. Headshots deal more damage and you can take down infected with fewer hits. The best melee weapon to use against infected is a knife, and you can usually take one down with 2 headshots. Now that you know how to kill infected, here's the strategy. Take them on one at a time. While blocking, let them attack you twice, then hit back with a heavy hit if you can. If it's a heavy hit, you can usually stagger them and hit them right away again, as long as they haven't staggered too far away. Repeat this process until they fall. If there are 2 or more zombies, run into a building, close the door. These aren't velociraptors we're dealing with. They're infected. They can't open doors. Oh, and make sure you go and make sure there's no other entrances to the building, and if there are, close those doors too, because infected will find them, and then you'll be stuck at a building with a bunch of infected, and that's never good. Once inside, you have 3 options. Option 1. Keep the infected at the door, open the door, hit them a few times, and then close it. Keep repeating this process until all the infected are dead. This is a great strategy early game because it's kind of like DoorDash, if all the DoorDash employees were brainless killers. But kill 5 or 6 infected, and usually one of them will have something you need. Option 2. Go into an interior room and hold C to lay down. After a few minutes, they will lose interest and wander off. Be careful exiting the building though, because they may still be around and hypersensitive to sound. The third option is to lock them all inside the building. This can be tricky to do without taking any damage, but it is a quick way to remove infected from the field without having to spend time killing them. Heavy hit the first one, block the second one, dodge and head for the exit. You might take a hit or 2 in the process, and don't forget to close the door behind you. One more way to kill infected is a stealth kill. This can be done with a single-handed bladed weapon. You have to get within range without the infected noticing you. Then simply hold right-click and then click the left mouse button. Done properly, you will kill them with 1 hit and without alerting other infected. This can be very tricky to pull off though. After practicing killing infected for a bit, you will probably notice some changes in the status icon at the bottom right of your screen. These icons give you a general idea of your survivor's health and wellness. I've actually explained this pretty well in one of my shorts, so I'm going to drop that in right here. Welcome to another How to DayZ in 60 seconds. Today we're going to talk about these 5 status icons and how they affect your character and each other. First up is temperature. This ranges from red to dark blue, with red having you lose health and consume hydration faster. Yellow, you won't lose health, but you will consume hydration faster. White is all systems go. Blue means that you will consume energy faster, and dark blue has your character losing health and consuming energy at an increased rate. Next is the hydration and energy icons, ranging from full white to flashing red. If either of these is in red or in flashing red, your character will start to lose health and also the ability to regenerate blood. When in yellow, you will not lose health, but this will also decrease the rate at which you regenerate blood. In white with a gap and full white, you will regenerate blood at the maximum level, and this is also going to improve your immunity to sickness. Now we have blood and health. If either of these reach 0, your character will die. As your character goes down in health, you will also not be able to move as quickly. And the only way to regenerate health in DayZ is through time, and how fast is entirely dependent on your blood level. Each of the 5 blood icons represents a different level at which your health will regenerate. Also, the closer you get to 0, you get this cool DayZ noir aesthetic. And I'm out of time. Happy surviving, and I'll see you on the coast. Now that we know what they do, let's talk about how to keep them all at the maximum level. When first spawning in, food and drink are one of the most important. I recommend eating everything you find right away. Food in your belly takes up no inventory space, so keep eating and drinking until you see a little stomach icon on the left of the others. If you keep eating after this, your survivor may vomit, losing more hydration and calories. Once the icon disappears, you can keep eating again. Never stop eating or finding food. Your calories and hydration is not full, even when it's full white. It takes a lot of food and hydration to be completely full on these. And the only way you can tell is when they're full white and you have an alternating up and down arrow. That's how you know you're full on calories and hydration. You will always be losing calories and hydration. The rate depends on a few different things, like movement. Running takes more calories than walking. Having a high temp will lose hydration faster. Having a low temp will cause calories to deplete faster. To keep your temperature gauge in the white, find better insulation clothing and keep them in good repair. Find heat packs, make sure to keep them in your clothing, not in your backpack. And move away from a heat source if you're too hot. You can also get heat buffs by standing near a heat source. This will look like little plus signs next to the temperature icon, and with these present, you will not be affected by any drops in temperature. I'm going to talk a little bit about bleeds and illness. Every status icon affects your overall immunity. Keep them all white and you won't get sick. But if they are low, you can start to be susceptible to illness. And the lower they are, the more often you will get sick. Sickness can range from annoying, like the common cold, to deadly, like pneumonia or sepsis. The cure varies depending on the type and stage of the illness. Early stages can mostly be cured by getting your stats all white and keeping them there. If left to progress, then you may need multivitamins or tetracycline and keep your statuses all at white. I won't go too much into treating illness here, but we will talk a lot about prevention. Keep your clothes dry. If something does get wet, most things can be wrung out by hand or they'll dry on their own, but a fire is the fastest way. If you've been practicing fighting infected, you'll probably have earned yourself a few cuts here and there. Treat these promptly. Being low blood is awful, and the best and quickest way to treat a cut is with a bandage. They come in packs of 4 and are usually already disinfected. If they get damaged, they can lose that status though, so be careful. You can also treat cuts with sewing kits, rags, or letting them heal on their own. However you treat them, if what you are using is not disinfected, you could get a wound infection. This will lead to sepsis. You can disinfect rags and sewing kits and bandages by using alcohol tincture or iodine. Or if you do get a wound infection, you can treat the first stage by disinfecting the cut itself with alcohol or iodine. If left alone, it will progress to the killer sepsis, and that can be only treated with tetracycline. You can also break your leg. Bear traps, landmines, falls from heights. If this happens, you'll pass out when you try to walk. You can walk slow while holding control, but you will need 2 sticks and rags, bandages, or duct tape to create a splint. This will lower the healing time and allow you to walk normally, although at a slower pace. One last tip on medication. When you take a pill, wait for the pill icon to go away before you take another. This will allow each pill to work as long as it can. Now let's get on to loot. There are many different types of loot areas. As you go through town, don't just run from random building to random building. It will take time, but eventually you'll learn what class of building belongs to. Residential, industrial, farm, medical, police, hunting, and military. Each area spawns different types of loot. Infected follow the same patterns when it comes to what's in their pockets. I recommend focusing on residential areas first. They hold a good variety of items that you will need right after spawning in. Food, clothing, kitchen tools, even guns and ammo, and of course the almighty knife. You cannot survive in Chernarus without a knife. Make this a top priority. And get a few, unless you can find a sharpening stone. As you play, you will start to see what spawns in each area, and you'll know where to go back to look for specific items. Also, one class of items will spawn in adjacent areas. For example, you will find medical items in residential building that is next to a medical building, or military gear in a shed that is in a military zone. Let's talk about clothing. Along with food and the almighty knife, clothing should be up there in the high priority list. The warmer you can keep your survivor, the less calories they will consume and the less food you will need to get deeper into the map. If you hover over an item of clothing on the inventory screen, it will tell you what the installation value is, what its condition is. Installation goes from worst to best, and the condition of any item in the game will be pristine, worn, damaged, or ruined. The condition of clothing will affect its installation value as well. Clothing can be repaired up to worn using duct tape sewing kits or leather sewing kits depending on its type. Hold the tool or clothing in your hand and drag the repair tool or clothing to combine. This will kick you out of the inventory screen, and then you can hold left click until the circle completes its rotation. Different clothing will have more or less inventory space and also change the amount of hotbar slots you have access to. Also, there's color variants, so find the best color that matches your surrounding depending on the map that you're playing. Okay, finding food. This is probably the one that gets most people frustrated playing this game. Right after you spawn in, the best way to get food is to loot houses and killing infected. Also, wrecked cars frequently spawn food, so make sure you check those. If you just spawned in, chances are somebody has already looted all the nearby buildings. If you don't find anything useful in the first 2 buildings, keep moving away from the coast until you start finding useful loot. One thing I always do is check under trees. Fruit will drop there, but only after a survivor has been in the area for a few minutes. So spawn areas often have fruit under trees. If you loot a row of houses and don't find food, go back to the beginning and look under the trees. Chances are enough time has passed that fruit will start spawning in. So if you ever really can't find food, just lie down in a house or a building for a while, and then go out and check the trees for fruit drops. This trick has saved my life many times. This also applies to mushrooms near hay bales and in forests. You can also get food from animals, wild or barnyard. Chickens are the easiest to find and kill. You can do that with your fists. Anything else you'll probably need a gun to take down. Either way, you'll need a sharp object to butcher them, and you must cook them so you don't get sick when you're eating raw meat. Also, butchering animal without gloves will result in bloody hands. Eating or drinking with bloody hands will always make you sick. So find gloves or have water on hand to wash your hands afterwards. For hydration, always make sure you're drinking from a clean water source, either a well or a canned beverage. I may recommend the Fanta, they're pretty great. Never drink from a container that you did not fill. Empty it out first and refill it with fresh water. You can also boil water in a pot to disinfect it, or use chlorine tabs. There are many other ways to get food, like fishing, setting traps, but this should be enough to get you started. If you do manage to kill and clean an animal, you'll need to cook it before eating it, and to do so you'll need a fire. To make a fire you'll need sticks or logs and paper of some sort. You can get sticks or logs from breaking down bushes, but careful if you don't have gloves because you may cut yourself. You can get paper from discarded packaging from ammo boxes. You can cut bark from a tree or use rags or bandages. You can combine the wood and the paper to create a fireplace, or you can find a fireplace in a building and place the objects in there. There are pros and cons to having an open fire or a fire in a house, mainly around the time of day, visibility, and available cooking slots. To light the fire, you can use matches or a lighter if you're lucky enough to find them, or you can create a hand drill kit. To do this, you'll need a knife to carve bark from a tree. Combine the bark with a short stick. When you combine them, you'll see it says craft fireplace, but you can use your middle mouse wheel to scroll down to get different options, and you'll want to select hand drill kit. Once you created the hand drill kit, hold it in your hands and look at the fire, and you should have the option to light it. If this option does not appear, you might be missing elements from the fire, or some elements might be damp or wet. Once the fire is lit, you can add more wood to it as needed, and you can cook your food. If you're using an indoor fireplace, you can cook your food by placing it in the cooking slots. There are two types of cooking slots in the indoor fireplace. One is for cooking and one is for drying. Dried food will last a lot longer, but it doesn't give you any hydration when you eat it. If you cook the food, it won't last as long, but it will give you hydration and calories together. If you're using an open fire, you'll need a long stick. Combine it with a knife to sharpen it, and then add the desired food to the slot created on the sharp stick. Look at the fire with this in your hand and you should have the option to cook. Wait for the wheel to complete a full rotation and you have yourself a meal. Make sure you don't burn it though. And bone apple tea. There are many different items you can craft in DayZ. Here we'll touch on only a few that are really useful in the early game. First up is the almighty knife. You need knives in DayZ. Knives save lives, and sometimes the DayZ gods are not willing to provide said knife. So you'll have to make your own. The easiest one to make is the bone knife. If you come across a cut up carcass, animal or human, you can use the bones left behind to craft a bone knife. Simply hold 2 or more bones in your hands and scroll through the crafting options to make a bone knife. To make one bone knife, it will consume 2 bones. So if you don't want to waste any bones or you only have one, you can find a boulder and just look at that while holding it, and it will give you the option to craft a knife. If you're not lucky enough to find random bones, you can make a stone knife. This is done by combining 2 small stones, or holding 1 stone in your hand while looking at a large boulder. Small stones can be found on railway tracks or in hunting trails, but they spawn in on the same principle as fruit and mushrooms, so finding them can be difficult. However, if you find a screwdriver, small wrench, large wrench, hammer, meat tenderizer, you can use these to chip off small stones from a large boulder. You can also use a sledgehammer, pickaxes, or other large tools to chip off large stones, and these can be further broken down into small stones. Rope is another useful tool to have on hand. You can make rope by combining 2 stacks of 6 rags, or by using a knife on guts. Rope can be used for many things. Combine a rope with a burlap sack or boar pelt to create a makeshift sling bag. This can be further combined with 3 short sticks to create a makeshift backpack. You can also attach a rope to a dry bag to make a quick sling bag that will also keep your valuables dry. I'm going to touch on weapons here, but just for a bit, because this video is mostly about survival. Melee weapons. Use the big and heavy ones for survivors, use the small and pointy ones for infected. Enough said. There are many types of ranged weapons in DayZ. My preferred loadout is a suppressed pistol, a CQB weapon, and a scoped rifle. However, in DayZ, you usually just have to use what you have ammo for. I won't go into too much about gunplay and PvP in this video, but each gun has a specific ammo type. If you hover over the gun in the inventory screen, it will tell you which type of ammo it takes. Don't shoot infected unless you must, or it's suppressed. In the early game, any gun that has ammo is the best gun in the world. A gun may have an internal mag or external mag, but every gun can be chambered with at least one round of the matching ammo type. Hold right click and tab left click to hip fire, or tab right click to aim down sight. The range of sights and scopes can be adjusted by using the page up and page down keys. This game is one of the most complex and realistic ballistics engines of any game, so there are so many factors that determine how a bullet may behave. Once you learn the survival basics, hop into a deathmatch server. It will spawn you in with many different random guns, and you can practice firing them all, without the risk of losing hours and hours of looting up and surviving. If you are lucky enough to find matching mag, gun, and ammo, you actually have to load the mags with the individual rounds. This can be done by putting the mag in your hand and making sure the ammo is unboxed, and then holding R while you're holding the mag in your hand while the matching ammo is in your inventory. This will automatically make the character load the mag. Alright, so I'm going to walk you through a quick little PvP incident we had while I was recording for this video. The thing about PvP in DayZ is it always happens when you're not ready for it. So just looking for some items to showcase in this video, and in a very small town not too far from the coast. And when you do have player encounters, you have to make decisions very, very quickly. So as soon as I saw this guy, there are a few things that went through my mind really quickly. 1, did he have a gun out? 2, did he look like he was approaching to talk? And 3, do I need to be ready for a fight? This all happens in a split second. As I saw he had his gun out and he was running towards me, I did not think he was going to be friendly. Now as I came around the building, I was going to go all the way around the building, but then I heard him in my left ear and knew that he was almost right behind me. So I had to turn around and face him, which turned out okay, although I did let him get one shot off, which hit me with the shotgun, and that could have killed me. I didn't have any armor or anything, but I think just because it happened so quick, he probably just grazed me or hit me in the arm or something, because nothing was damaged, so not sure where that shot went, but turned out well for me. Now I waited in this shed for a little while before going out to loot the body, because there's usually always a second person. So always take this time to reload your mag, watch the body, wait for another person to come or find out if there's other people in the area before leaving to loot that body. Because what people will do is watch the body, wait for you to come out and loot it, and then dump a mag into you and you'll be dead. But anyway, that's gonna be all for this video, so I really hope you enjoy it. If you'd like a part 2, let me know, because I really enjoyed making this video and I really would like to make more. I wanted to keep them fairly short, so thanks for watching and I'll see you on the coast.